Today I'd like to talk about a movie that came out, I believe it was in 1997, called The Full Monty. It's a movie that I think has some significant social, cultural commentary, and it's also funny and strangely heartwarming. All of those things are true, but it's also a movie that I wish were better. As I watched it again, I thought, yeah, this is good. I mean, this is really tapping into something that's you don't often see discussed or mentioned, and it's something that's if anything gotten even more relevant over the years. But it's ultimately kind of a trifle. It does it does have its relevant setting and its relevant themes, but doesn't really delve very much into any of them. It's just sort of light and airy as a souffle, as has been said. When it could have been something, it could have been funny, but also it could have hit harder. The movie, in case you didn't know, or in case you hadn't heard of it, I think it's become somewhat of a cult classic. It came out a year after Trainspotting, which was sort of like the 90s, the grungy, icky 90s Brit movie about a bunch of loser junkies. This is along the same lines, although far less gritty and much more on the heartwarming side and much less on the nihilistic side. But both movies are rather amusing, even though Trainspotting has a couple of rather upsetting scenes. But this isn't about Trainspotting. This is about The Full Monty. So what you have, it's a town in northern England, and it used to be this industrial center before the factories all closed, and the workers were forced onto the dole, and so now they live these lives of quiet desperation, it could be said, where their livelihood, their former livelihood, has been stripped away, and yes, the welfare state still keeps them afloat, but it's a way of life that is far from rewarding and just feels degrading, and there's just this feeling or this sense from all these guys who used to have a purpose and who used to have pride, that now they've become obsolete. As the industrial centers have been closed down, or the factories have moved overseas where they can get cheaper labor. It's the story. It's the same story that we see repeated again and again in so many places across the West, in the United States and Canada and in Western Europe particularly. And it's a very, it's rife with pathos, and there's a real sympathy towards these characters, and these are the kinds of, these are the kinds of guys who became Trump voters in the United States, because everybody else just looked at the white working class, or the what was left of the white working class, as a bunch of inbred hick rednecks, the trendy liberal types fetishized all of the peoples of color who dwelt in poverty, but as far as whites living in Appalachia and in these other places where where the factories had been closed down, the so-called Rust Belt, that population, which is a huge swath of the population, they were just relentlessly, and still are to a great extent, relentlessly looked down upon and ignored. And so it's the same kind of demographic, and we see the same kinds of, issues relating to male identity, issues relating to, male sense of worth, and so forth. Now, the interesting twist that is taken in the Full Monty is you see that we get to know this group of guys, and again, the main character is, I can't remember the actor's name, but he was the one who played Begbie in Trainspotting, who played just the crazy psycho. In Trainspotting, here he's a nicer guy, but he's still sort of a little bit of a scam artist. He's sort of out to make a quick buck by taking breaking into where the factories had been and trying to make off with pieces of iron and selling them on the black market and stuff like that. And of course, since he lost his job, his wife divorced him, and now she's threatening she has a new man living with her. She's not even married to him, but who wants to think of himself as this guy's the father of this guy's son. So his own son is being threatened to be being taken away from him, and it's because he won't just in his mind debase himself by taking some incredibly low paying job, but he's looking for something more meaningful, and so he ends up on the dole, just like most of his friends who are looking for something more meaningful and something that pays better. And what they find out one night is that there's this troupe of male strippers who are entertaining at this dance hall, or this like local auditorium, and it's women only, and who are invited, of course, to this event, which is sort of something that's funny. Like, I don't know if that would ever fly today, that they would be able to exclude an entire gender. But this was the 90s. So they peek in and they see, that one of the main guy's, like his best mate is this sort of plump, not obese, but a little bit overweight guy who's very self-conscious about his body, and he sees his wife at this among the crowd of women who are screaming and yelling for these male strippers, and these guys are really put off by this situation, and then they conceive this idea, hey, well, what if we were male strippers? And they decide that they're going to go for it, but that what they're going to do to set themselves apart, they're just like ordinary looking guys. They're not especially handsome. They're not muscular. They don't dance well. And there's no particular reason why a group of women would want to see them, except they decide what's going to set them apart is, unlike the other strippers who almost go all the way, but then don't show full frontal. They're going to do that. They're going to actually you know, bear all. And that's the meaning of the full Monty. That's the title's significance. So what is that? It's very interesting. The movie is very interesting because you could easily see this, these men choosing to do this as something that's debasing them, and as something that's and in a way, of course, it is debasing because they're making fools of themselves. We see them, practice, and they don't have the moves down. You know, they don't have the moves at all, and they just look silly and ridiculous. And yet, at the same time, there's some sense of them, in daring to do this, in having the balls to do this. They're in some way taking back their masculinity. And so, by saying we're not intimidated by these, these good-looking male strippers who dance really well and who our wives, secretly fantasize about. We're going to put ourselves out there, and we're going to, be even more daring in a way because, they're men who know about their physical deficiencies. They know that they're, average looking at best, and that their dance skills aren't anything great or anything like that. But they're still going to put themselves out there without shame. And it ends up being this incredibly, it ends up generating all of this attention, and all this buzz. And so it becomes, in the end, this triumph when they actually do put on their show. And so all of their wives and all the women who, in some of their cases, they used to be married to, or just women in their community, who had sort of, looked down on them or maybe not seen them as truly men because since the time that they lost their jobs, even their former foreman, the one who was their boss at work, even he has lost his job, but he's in this situation with his wife where he has to pretend that he's got this cushy job, and they just go deeper and deeper into debt, and he can't tell her about it. But that all gets found out, and then but eventually, when they put on the show at the end, and they bear all, we don't actually see full frontal, but we see it happen from behind, and when that happens, it's like this moment of sheer triumph, unlikely triumph, because again, looked at in a particular way, it's not like they've done anything to get their jobs back or get their dignity back, but it's in some way, in choosing to sacrifice their dignity, they've become these legends. They've become these heroes, and the community loves it, and the women all scream for them. And it's not just charity. I think they're actually, it's like they're actually turned on by their, by the fact that that they have the balls to do something like this. So it's a very, again, a very interesting concept, and it's an unlikely feel-good movie, quote unquote. I hate that term, feel-good movie, but this is, it does end on a high note. It ends with them putting on this show and making a bunch of money from it, and the future's still in doubt. The economy hasn't improved, the jobs haven't come back, so there's still a lot of questions about where it goes from here. But at least at this moment, with this particular group of, I think it's 6 men total, who've put on this show. For them, they have temporarily taken back their masculinity, by going for the full Monty.